Super excited to partner with True Diligence. We've actually been working together for over 2 years, and they have over 30 years in the business, thousands of clients, 81 five-star reviews on Google. You can go check that out. And USA based support. And it's really about streamlining and saving time and money. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm excited to be joined by my colleague and friend, Eva Rumble. She's Executive Vice President and also co host here on our podcast at Green Path Tech. Today, we're going to be talking about three key trends in freight. Some big things happening. How are you doing today, Eva?
Doing well. How about yourself, Andy?
Doing really well, thank you. There's some really big things happening. And you and I, of course, we follow the freight industry very closely. And we were going to dive into three big ones this week. The first one, I'm sure everybody out there in freight has been seeing freight fraud. I've seen reports, many reports. There was a ring of Amazon for 90 million. There was a report this week of a $35 million cargo theft ring. It's really happening a lot right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, down here where I'm at, there's a lot of trucking companies in my area in North Carolina, and starting to really pay attention to things like where the guard checks are, and just like, is it happening over here? Is there theft going on there when the average incident is over $200,000? It's hard to imagine just how that's affecting all of these companies. And I think when we talked before, it was anywhere from 2 to 24 hours of time that's spent on risk management, trying to track one incident down. And that's just a lot of time away from business. It's still just such a major issue.
It is, and it's a huge cost to the economy. ARL Network and TIA have both done some research and reporting on this. And it says basically freight fraud costs the American economy up to $35 billion annually. That's a huge number.
That is a huge number. And where's it going now? Where are these, stolen goods going, and that just tells you that, what we see every day, it's behind the scenes for sure, but that's terrible. That's a horrible number.
Absolutely. And, they're targeting carriers and brokers.
Yeah.
And these rings are very sophisticated. They are stealing motor carrier numbers, stealing identities. They're watching freight coming and going from facilities and deciding when to attack. And a lot of it comes from, being in a rush to get something out, right? Somebody calls and says, hey, I can be there in an hour. I'm with so-and-so carrier. I've got it. And they go and they steal it. They put it on the black market and it's gone. And I don't know who's buying it on the black market, but obviously there's a huge market out there for stolen goods at a fraction of the normal cost, right?
Right. Right. And that's, it comes down to that one core thing is the identity theft. They're getting very savvy. Thankfully, there are some ways to combat that. That we've discussed in the past, especially when it comes to even, DMV related or proprietary linking to things on IDs. But if you don't have a way to check, then you're just taking a look at an ID and hoping it's correct. But when they can steal those MC numbers, especially you said inactive ones, they're even using inactive ones, which blows my mind. That's pretty brazen.
It is, absolutely. Yeah. There was one story, where a company got a phone call about some freight. They said, we're with so-and-so carrier and we're going to scheduling our pickup of the cargo. And they said, okay, well, that's the shipper said basically, okay, good. We're ready to ship it out. They said, we'll be there within an hour. And they put a logo sticker on the door and they faked the identification of the person, right? And they pulled in, hauled the freight away, and it's gone. Never to be found again, and this is happening coast to coast. In fact, these reports indicate there's a 27% year over year increase in cargo theft with a 41% rise in fraudulent emails
No.
targeting brokers and carriers. Yeah.
Wow. You know, it's technology is wonderful, but when it's in the wrong hands, it's not wonderful anymore. You know, and that's the hard part. So it's how do we stay ahead of that? How do we, you know, not always chase our tails with it? That's one of the biggest, you know, things that I think that we need to deal with today is staying ahead of it, and trying to mitigate the risk from top down versus, you know, chasing it. And
Right.
it does such financial damage. We've seen, you know, companies not make it for very long with that much loss.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of pressure on the industry as it stands, and we're going to talk about that.
Mhm.
When you're wasting so many hours and losing money
Right.
because you don't get paid on that load, of course, if you're a carrier or a broker that arranged that transportation, you're not getting paid on that. They stole the freight. No, you don't get paid, right? So then you're that carrier or broker trying to track it down, right? What happened here? And who should I call? And where do you think they went? And all the wasted hours and that could be spent on growing your business or taking care of hiring or retention or whatever else. It's just a lot of wasted time and money.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's the number one big one. Number two, no news or surprise to anybody out there. Tariffs. Tariffs are in the news every day. Um, and there's some positive things happening
I
as a
agree.
result of it,
Mhm.
right?
I
And
agree.
there will be, I believe, economic benefits, and there's reasons for that. We're going to be talking about it, right? But there are disruptions to supply chains, of
Mhm.
course. But there are also some really upside positive benefits to it. For one, more US jobs boosts our economy,
Mhm.
right? So having supply chains here instead of importing all of that, obviously is going to raise the number of employees, the number of facilities, and so on and so forth. So that's a positive from it.
I definitely, and bringing in more industries into our country. And I'm not just only talking about U.S. You and I spoke about this earlier. Is I look at it from a global perspective that every country is now allowed to look internal to what we as a country have. How can we resource within? And then when we become, each country becomes a little more independent upon itself, is more secure. Then what you don't have within your own country, you can go out and then start to trade. But I see tariffs globally the way they're sort of rolling out now, and I know they're changing, ebbing and flowing, but I see it as a way to reestablish each country so that we can almost be or get closer to a more level playing field. I know that may not be accessible, but you see the abuse of tariffs from country to country um, based on competition. Now, like in the US, bringing the jobs in, um, going local, not just as a buzzword, not just as a nice thing to do, but actually being able to go local and be able to financially afford it. It's logistically makes sense. Shipping products within state to state versus having to wait 2 weeks to get your produce from another country when the nutrient value is in the tank. So many different areas that we could bring in house. You and I mentioned, I think it was steel, automotive. I'd love to see our farming come back in country, and it takes the burden of economic, debt and the burden of the budget off of the everyday person and puts it into country to country. It starts to cover us so that we're not living paycheck to paycheck. I truly believe that we're going to see more jobs here for people in the US to work in, and unemployment shouldn't really be an issue or as much of an issue. I see us being able to, have lower prices. And the thing that people get confused about with tariffs, when they think about the numbers, let's say it's 35% or it's 20% or 15% tariffs on us, people calculate the tariffs on the consumer price. but instead it should be calculated on the cost of producing the goods. And that's where the margins are huge. So we have a lot of education coming to us on tariffs. And again, I'm excited. It's not been in my lifetime that I've seen tariffs work, but based on, what we're learning, some of the time I've spent, watching, I have more of an uptick in my spirit about where we're heading overall, because I look at where we've been and I said, well, how was that working? I don't think it was working that great. So I do see positivity here. Again, the burden is off of the US citizen. And I look at that for each country. Each country's citizens will hopefully also be benefited from the tariffs. And it also builds, more of that spirit within each country. If the incentives right now are not really there for us, if I can go to, let's just say Walmart and get something that's imported for a lot cheaper than I can, order it from another state or down the street. So that's where we're at. But yeah, more reliance or less reliance on imported goods and more internal, dependence on each other. And I see small businesses being able to thrive better in that environment.
Right.
Right.
And we've been paying these tariffs as a country, United States, for decades.
Yes, we have.
And we've had a massive trade deficit as
Mm-hmm.
well,
Yes, we
right?
have.
So paying high tariffs and having this imbalance of what we're sending out versus what we're importing, been a
Right.
huge imbalance actually. Um, so yeah, I see, and in my opinion, I think it's going to take some time for Apple and Nvidia and the auto manufacturers to onshore again manufacturing facilities and distribution centers, and those things will take some time. But I do also believe the market corrects itself. So
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
there may be a bump in certain commodities for a little while, but competition is going to make that go away. And having it sourced locally, if you think about it, all of that time and money spent getting it from way overseas, right?
Right.
The
Right.
logistics involved, the customs, and all the things, right? It's less handling and less time to have it onshore here,
Right. And
right?
and I think about what the supply chain went through in terms of the delays in the maritime world, and the pain of having ships stuck with products that we were dependent on.
Yeah.
That really should be eased, at least in the coming years. I do think it might be years before we truly get rocking and rolling on this, but as with anything, give it time. I'm excited to see countries wanting to come and invest in us and bring their companies here, which will boost our economy, but will also help, you know, transactionally. I think it will help them as well. So that's exciting news. Our how much were we offshoring stuff for years, countries, instead of bringing it in house? So I'm very positive. I'm seeing very positive things, knowing it's going to be an up and down cycle of balance, but I believe good things are coming.
Right. And COVID honestly shown a huge light on our dependencies on pharmaceuticals, on chips,
Yeah.
on military things.
Mm-hmm.
It really, really shined a bright light on that. And there was this expression, it's kind of funny, at that time with all these big rigs sidelined, and there were parking lots full of big rigs that couldn't go anywhere. And they were
Right.
calling them salsa trucks. And I was like, I wonder what that's about. Salsa trucks. Yeah, it's all there except there's no chips.
Right.
So they're salsa trucks. I'm like, oh my gosh. But there were literally companies renting acreages to park these big rigs that got towed there because they couldn't drive anywhere because they had no computer chips.
Yes. I knew
And
about this.
that's, boy, that's dangerous to
Yeah.
have your logistics industry reliant on another country to give you the chips that you need in order to drive that big rig down the road.
Right. I remember, was it Detroit? Was one of the most prolific areas of automotive. I think it was in I just know that area from Ford and other countries that were, I'm sorry, other companies that were there producing. And then as it's like we lost our edge, you
Yeah.
know, and we
Our
lost our.
industrial economy,
Mhm.
essentially, we shipped overseas.
Correct. And now I want to see us. I'm not looking at going back to the old. I'm saying like let's get our roots back and use our talents here, bring back our talents here, and manufacturing is very key to what we're doing. And as we also see the trade skills starting to bump up, more people, more young people wanting to go into the trade world. I see this as a great marriage, great timing for all that to come about.
Right. Absolutely. I think there's positive things for sure coming, and
Hmm.
it does take some time to settle out, but there's a lot of great things I believe that will happen with the economy for employees, for people, like you said, coming up, trying to find a career, all of
Right.
those things. I think there's going to be some very positive things there.
Right.
So, our third big one, overcapacity
Hmm.
in the supply chain. So, what happened post COVID? There was this massive increase of freight needing to be moved everywhere. So companies went out and bought big rigs and got warehouses and hired drivers and recruiters and all the things, right? That they paid a very high price because everybody was buying, right? So they paid a very high price. And then there's now this overcapacity of assets. And it's impacting, of course, supply
Right.
chains.
Wow.
And, you know, right now, more than ever, um, companies really have to be looking at how do we grow our company more efficiently?
Hmm.
How can we gain more customers and not continue to spend 40%, 80% too much to do it? Right. And that's something that you and I work on continuously with companies, more revenue for less time and money, right? And that's key, I think, to this area. There's one big thing that's happening. There's reduced freight rates,
Hmm.
right? The rate per mile has come down because there's just so many people out there that will literally take that load, even if they might lose money. They want the revenue.
Hmm.
So what you've got to do as a company in this space, look for the right freight for you. Go to the right people and say, we can help you with this and get more of that business more efficiently. I think it's a huge way to combat this big problem that's going on right now.
Well, yeah, it's COVID was there's a lot of scrambling that went around. But again, I'm thankful for this the opportunity to really see things. I mean, I saw it not only in the economy but in supply chain. I saw it in education. We saw it in so many different areas where we were just status quo, walking the walk, and then when this happened, I'm thankful for what we learned. I'm thankful for now how can we adjust and being able to build revenue in times like this is key to get more clients and get your name out there. And that's something that I love doing with you is being able to streamline that, make it more cost effective, both sides of the P&L, but also to really drive some new revenue because this is it's a hard position to get out of. It's a very hard position to get out of.
Right.
But yeah, it's something I really enjoy doing with you and working with the trucking industry in that way, various different areas. So yeah, I think we're going to work our way as an industry and as a country through many things here. These are things that are moving around, but there are solutions for each one of these topics we talked about today.
Absolutely, there is. There are things in place now that can be done to eliminate some of this identity fraud.
Right.
Um, the tariffs, those are going to take care of themselves with time.
Mhm.
Um, and then overcapacity, there are things to do there as well. Just being more efficient with getting to the right companies with the right message
Mhm.
is a huge part of this. we see a lot of companies do what's called spray and pray, right?
Yes.
And it's so inefficient.
That's a
Having
good
your
point.
sales executives spend 50% of their time working on non-fit business.
Right.
There's no point in it. Uh,
Right.
and that, of course, there's a lot of frustration and a high amount of turnover, which leads to higher costs for the companies to get more people, new people trained up and all the things. And then they do it again. They go,
Right.
hey, here's 1,000 people, and
Right.
half of them are not a fit. And it's like, why are we talking to another freight broker? We're a broker. Oh, that's on your list? I don't
Mhm.
know why that's on your list. It's like, start with the basic.
Mhm.
Go to the right targets. That's number one, right? But then what are you saying to differentiate yourself, right? How
Right.
do you differ? What is your value? Can you give some verified results, some testimonials?
Mhm.
Um, when you do those things, you can streamline your sales growth. It's tremendous.
Right.
So,
You've got to get strategic on that sales, the wash, rinse, and repeat of the spray and pray. And, and I think a lot of that comes sometimes from either what they've known. So not like wagging a finger at them, but it's until you don't know what you don't know, but once you see how you can streamline the process and get more strategic and get more targeted, and get to the right people, that's half the battle right there. Is just finding the right people to speak to.
right,
Then the knowledge comes back around, and the wash, rinse, and repeat of the same thing can change. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it absolutely transform the way they run their sales and marketing, and it just so the percentages are very high of revenue increase, and it's really not. I mean, I think it's strategic, but it's also just knowing the market, knowing how do people want to be spoken to today, um, and how to get what's important to them up front. So, and then we've worked with companies a lot on even their pitch decks and everything else, and how they position themselves. And so I love doing that. I love being a part of that, and also being able to do it cost effectively for a company, because that's coming from the HR world. I know what it means to hire a good sales executive or an experienced person with a network. I mean, it's you put some money out there, but if the processes aren't necessarily working, then what's the point? So I like that we can come in and do things a lot less expensive, but with a lot of impact.
right. Yep. We drive sales growth at 40 to 80% less costs, and we can show you how that works. Would love to meet with you on that front. So these are the three, hot topics in freight right now. I'm sure we'll have more episodes on these things as things continue to unfold. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for listening or watching, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.